Hi, it's Richard Moore from Racing Profits Guides, and I'm up here at Mount House Stables with James Given, the trainer, and we're just going to talk a bit about James himself and some of the courses that he sends horses to. Give us a bit of an insight of what a trainer looks for when going to some of these courses, particularly the all-weather courses that we cover. Nice to meet you, James.
Morning.
How are you doing?
Very well, thanks, and you?
Good. Yeah, very good. What brought you into horse racing in the first place? Let's talk a bit about your history.
Well, as has been well documented, I'm a vet, and I went to work for Mark Johnston as his vet and assistant, and over the 3 years I was there, very much became more involved in the racing side than the veterinary side. Over the 3 years. I was lucky enough to win a scholarship, the Alex Scott Memorial Scholarship, and spend a month in Dubai.
Okay.
And when I got back from there, then it was the decision to be made, are you going to go training or vetting? And thought I'd have a go at training, and that was about 15 years ago, and I'm still in business. So
okay, I was going to say, when was that?
1998.
And you came straight to Willoughby, or did you?
Willerton.
You had a spell at Willerton, sorry. You had a spell at Wolverhampton first, did you?
5 months at Wolverhampton to start off with. Richard Muddle was very helpful. He made it doable to train there and rent some boxes. And then he very kindly as well let me out of my contract to stay there. I'd signed a contract for a year to be able to move to Willerton in April '99, and have been here ever since.
And so you've got this yard, and you've got another yard down in Hemswell village itself.
Yeah. This yard is very much more for the young horses, the 2-year-olds, and the other yards for the older horses.
And we've had a look at some of the facilities here. Obviously, you've had a great success. You'd say more all-weather, or is it across all the flat?
I think it's horses for courses. You know, we have done well on the all-weather, but I think we've also done well on the turf. You know, we've had some
very nice winners,
high-level successes and good quality handicaps and group races. I think it's just trying to find what's the best race course for each horse.
And what are some of your highlights then of your career so far?
Well, early on we had some nice, good handicappers. I Cry For You won the Cambridgeshire, Hugs Dancer won the Ebor, the Chester Cup. And then we've had a number of group winning horses: Jessica's Dream, Wonder's Dream, Summitville, Lady Gloria, Dandino, Indian Days. You know, Indian Days was one example, was a nice horse. He won the Bosphorus Cup in Turkey 2 years in a row, Group 2 in Turkey 2 years in a row. You know, not just domestically, but internationally as well.
Okay, James, so if we can move on to another turf track, the Nottingham course. Very different to Pontefract, obviously a lot flatter course, still left-handed. But would you say a lot different in the characteristics of the course there? They have two courses, do they?
They do. They've got an outside track which they tend to, I think, use in the spring and autumn, and a summer track, so there's a chance for the ground to recover when it's not obviously being used. I mean, one of the similarities between Nottingham and Pontefract, before the racegoer will see the horse, is the lead up for the horses. The stables are quite some distance away. At Pontefract you have to lead up over a golf course and come down, and Nottingham you've got to lead from the right far side of the track right round the track.
Down that
and
track,
it's a lot longer lead up. A fresh horse or a fractious horse or a worrying horse or a new horse can sometimes find that a bit overwhelming, whereas you compare that to other tracks like say Yarmouth, where the stable yard's right next to the parade ring, less chance for a horse perhaps to get a bit overexcited or whatever.
So from a trainer's point of view, if you had a horse like that who you thought's quite fractious, would that sort of make you be cautious of sending it to Nottingham, or is it something you wouldn't tell your stable lad to be aware of?
Well, it'd be maybe more about sending two people to handle the horse if I felt it was particularly fractious. If it was the right race for the horse, we'd take more care in how to handle the horse beforehand to look after it. I mean, if you take another example, it's like the Knavesmire at York. You know, the stables are right over the far side. They've got to walk right across the Knavesmire, and that's a very different test of an animal's personality and character to say something like Newmarket with a box to the track.
Straight to it.
It's there are other aspects of the track that the racegoer doesn't necessarily see. But in terms of the tracks, yes, Nottingham is obviously a very different track to Pontefract. It's flat, entirely flat.
Very wide, isn't it? A very big track as well.
although the width again on when they're on the circular track isn't critical,
Isn't quite as
because you know there's plenty of room, and most often you'll see the best horse winnings.
A lot longer straight, would you say, at Nottingham? 4, is it 4?
Yes, it's about 4
furlongs,
furlongs, isn't it? Yeah. So they're not racing at all when they turn in. In fact, they turn in and they're still. Jockeys will hold their position and hold the rhythm they've got off the bend, and they won't quicken until a furlong or more after the bend. Certainly, you know, the draw on any track is still important
to get that position.
Because if you're drawn wide, you know, and you want to go forward or you want to drop in, it's harder than if you're drawn lower and so on and so on. So you might be a bit further back than you want to do because of a poor draw, even over 1.25 miles, but you've got plenty of time to make it up.
Yeah. And the obviously on the outer track they've got the straight 6 furlong and 5 furlong, and on the inner track's just the straight 5, isn't there?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. And do you see a difference between the two courses, or is it just the time of year that creates that difference?
I think it's just the time of year. I'm not sure that there's any difference in terms of drainage or anything like that.
It's next to the Trent, isn't it? Right next to the Trent.
Yeah, so the Trent runs round behind. If you imagine you're in the stands and the track's going out to the round to the right, there's a road, and then it's the riverbank, and the Trent's just there. Point being that the water table's very high there, and so it doesn't drain as quickly as other tracks.
No. So is that the clay soil that makes up?
Not being an agronomist or even a turf track specialist, I'm not entirely familiar with what it is. I don't think it is as clayey a track as, say, Warwick is, but it's not as sandy and free draining as, say, Yarmouth or Musselburgh would be. But it doesn't drain quite, it doesn't drain as quickly as other, but it doesn't stay as wet as other tracks might do. But for the high water table, doesn't drain as quickly as others.
No. And they have they have a reputation for having some very high quality maidens there. Do you tend to see that the competition's a lot stronger at Nottingham than some of the other turf circuits?
Often being, yes.
A lot from Newmarket come up, don't we, and things.
And from Lincolnshire, good horses from Lincolnshire.
Of course, yeah. Well-bred horses from here.
But yes, I think people like it because it's a fair and flat track. There aren't dragons in the track. If, like I was saying earlier, the best horse tends to win the race. It tends to get a run wherever you're drawn and whatever. And certainly over the 5 and 6 furlongs, it's a dead straight. The draw can be an effect. If you're drawn up against a rail, that can be advantageous and so on, but not always. And so it's a nice place to introduce horses,
especially the younger horses.
It's a straightforward track, and it's straightforward for them.
And for the older horses, obviously there's more distance races there. What's the longest trip that you'd have there? 1 mile 4, is it? Or
being a round track, I think they do run 2 miles there. I think they do. Yeah.
And do you tend to find again that because it's so flat, it's a very fair track for the longer trips as well?
Yeah, you tend to get a more even pace there. You don't get a
stop and start.
Don't get a stop and start. No, I mean, if you wanted to improve your position, and the back straight isn't actually a back straight, it's slightly dog-legged, but you can still improve your position. If someone is playing silly beggars in front and you think, well, I've had enough of that, I want an even pace, you can do it without expending too much energy. You just let your horse get into its rhythm, and it can then go on and put pressure on the lead horse, who then has to react or not react. Whereas on a turning track, you can't do that so much.
No, and at the end of that back straight, there's the cambered. It's quite a tight bend, but they've cambered the track, haven't they? Does that really help a horse keep its rhythm around there?
The camber certainly does. Yeah, and
it would be tight otherwise.
In the summer track on the inside, the turn-in is even tighter.
Right.
Obviously, if you're coming in the bend to an inside rail, but the winter spring track, the bend is fine. And certainly, if someone's playing silly beggars, messing about with the pace in front, as we said earlier, there's a 4 furlong straight, so you've got plenty of time to wind it up without letting them sort of keep the pace settle, and then sprinting off a turn, if you like.
So would it suit a galloping type horse then, even though it's a tight bend there, the galloping horse? And you wouldn't want to be front running then too much there, because you've got plenty of time.
You can front run there if you've got that sort of horse. I mean, I think you can ride your horse pretty much any way you like at Nottingham.
That's the good thing about the track.
It's a fair track to everyone, and generally the best horse will win.